All right, welcome to Camp North End. But instead of exploring the place, we're gonna explore the plants. Let's go. So what's kind of crazy for the plant fanatics in us is that the landscaping here was planned and designed by a gentleman named Thomas Waltz and his landscape architecture firm. And they're one of the most famous landscaping firms on the planet, not just in the US. I mean, the scopes of the projects that they've done are so grandiose that it's pretty mind-numbing. They've done things all around the planet. I mean, in some gardens in the realms of hundreds of acres. And they've done so many incredible projects that the mention of Camp North End is just pretty low on their list of recent projects. All this planting was also done under the supervision of a garden designer from Asheville named Nancy Duffy. You kind of helped probably a lot with plant selection or siting and whatnot. And what we're going to do is kind of look at the planting combinations that we might be able to use in our own garden and what makes the way that they use these combinations so useful. All right, so here's some gorgeous planting right here beside this building with this mural. Really important key definitive feature of making or keeping native plantings attractive is some very definitive hardscaping. Here's a nice geometric line kind of running through an otherwise messy planting, especially during the dog days of summer right now. A lot of really neat plant combinations that you typically find in prairies, which is what makes this place so awesome. This is wild quinine. There's some spent echinacea heads. There's a bunch of Russian sage in here. It's not native. However, you know, if we give them a little bit of leeway, this looks gorgeous during the toughest time of the year. It's also super non-invasive, and it's not going to spread anywhere else, obviously. A lot of gorgeous grasses throughout all of their plantings. Little blue stem is probably used most prolifically. Always good to pick up a cultivar where they've selectively bred, you know, the grass that you're picking, because A, it's going to have better coloration. There's lots of gorgeous blues and greens in here. And they also tend to flop much less often. So lots of good. There's some juncus over there that also looks good. It's a rush blending in with the grasses here. Some goldenrod in the back. We'll look at some more combinations. They've got some butterfly bush. We could fuss at them about that, but they're feeding the pollinators late in the season, and this urbanized area doesn't mean they're going to escape out anywhere. Otherwise, butterfly bush is a pretty hardcore veto from me. They've got lots of big groupings that look good this time of year here with the, I think this is Helianthus or Helianthoides or whatever, and that's I think it's false sunflower. That's what this is. Yeah, tends to have. The only difference between this and a real sunflower is that the ray florets, these things on the outside, are fertile. Also looks kind of like Jerusalem artichoke. And so these are big and messy, but they're always in these corner strips where things tend to have a hard time because drainage is terrible and everything else. Here's the gorgeous seed heads of Asclepias or milkweeds. They've gone over, but obviously the seeds are really nice. Plenty of foliage on them still too, and interplanted with some goldenrod. So lots of good examples right here in this one little spot. All right, so here's another combination of plants here in a corner where obviously it's tough for plants to thrive. Probably not much of a root zone in here. A lot of good competition. There's more of the little blue stem, some goldenrod. Always a good idea to get cultivars of goldenrod because some of it can be super aggressive and kind of outcompete a lot of different plants. Although here they put a bunch of plants together that don't mind. They exist naturally in the natural setting and tall grass prairie type environments, and so they get along fine here. There's some spent Joe Pye weed. We'll look at some bigger swaths of that soon. There's what looks like rudbeckia that's gone over, and you can see it's kind of growing underneath this tree right here, and so they're clearly happy with some shade. That's fine. It's kind of hard to see in the back there, but there's also some Culver's root, perfectly happy. And there's even a little butterfly weed right here. It's kind of happy living amongst this nice tight little corner. They've even let a little, I mean, this is kind of a non-native that's permissible oftentimes. This little purple-headed flower called Verbena bonariensis, it hops around and self-seeds, so it tends to really help these natural plantings. All right, so here's a nice collection. We've got some fall sunflower and then some spent Joe Pye weed, which would have been gorgeous in the middle of the summer and still looks nice if you're a plant fan. All right, here's a nice little combination. We've got a bunch of spent Joe Pye weed, would have been gorgeous in the middle of the summer. Some more of this fall sunflower. There's a lot of good cultivars of Joe Pye weed. If you're a native plant fanatic, you love it, even the way it's looking right now when it's fully spent. But they've got Little Joe and Baby Joe and a bunch of things that are smaller in stature, which are kind of good and a little more well suited to people's home gardens. There's a great assemblage of white wood aster right here that's covered up in pollinators, low growing, hugs the ground tightly, good ground cover, and obviously kind of happy to be in this building shadow right here. And once again, would be considered quite messy, but look, it's right along these paths right here. We've got some hard lines to kind of outline the space, and that makes this native planting feel jungly and not too messy. All right, here's a brilliant and beautiful example of how well done a shade planting can be. We've got a lot of gorgeous natives right next to each other right here. This looks kind of like the invasive tree of heaven, but it's got the serrated edgings on the leaflets. This is and it's got the hairy stems. It's probably a staghorn sumac versus a smooth. And sumac is becoming increasingly popular in its use of urban landscaping. It's been this way maybe the last decade or so in the UK, but it's finally making its way to being widely used in the US, and is obviously a gorgeous shrub that creates that jungly feel. Beneath it, there's a lot of amazing, awesome natives. This is Baptisia australis, or wild indigo. It has really gorgeous seed pods right now. You can see it's right here in this, well, we'll call it a sea of inland sea oats. This is a grass that really likes shade and wet. There's probably a lot of rainwater runoff right through here. Here's a shade-loving plant. It's native heuchera or coral bells right beside some more of these inland sea oats. Adjacent or across from this is a lot of interesting things too. We've got a grass, Panicum virgatum, panic grass. This is definitely one you want to get a cultivar for. This is the cultivar Northwind, probably super straight up and down, very rigid structure. That one tends to flop if you try to grow it in your garden. Also, it can be a big bully. Here's what looks like red osier dogwood, which will be gorgeous in the wintertime. Its stems really, the anthocyanins, or these compounds that make the stems red, really increase as they provide photoprotective effects in the winter. So the whole plant turns this gorgeous red. Some ironweed. Oh, here's some, this is a coreopsis. This blooms in the springtime. This landsleeve coreopsis, this is probably the cultivar Zagreb, Z-A-G-R-E-B. Really easy, low maintenance, native perennial. More of that Northwind panic grass. God, look at this little blue stem cultivar. It's like almost this iridescent blue and gray. There's a lot of really pretty colors on these little blue stem cultivars. Some spent Joe Pye weed. Oh, look at the seed heads of ironweed or vernonia. These are also very pretty. Right here at the beginning of September. This looks like a viburnum. This will also be gorgeous in the fall. In fact, I should probably return here and do some sort of fall follow-up with all the fall colors. Man, you can see how pretty that sumac's gonna be. Double back, there's some more of goldenrod, probably that fireworks cultivar, some more asclepias or milkweed. The seed heads turning. Just a great part shade, and then all the way across to summer combination. Big keys to take away from here, right? You can see how big the groupings are. Got to plant in big groups. That's one of the things that takes native plants and gives them some discernible structure, and what makes an area a little more tolerable for people kind of unfamiliar with native plant plantings. and an easy design trick, right? They didn't go all out with just interdispersing plants, although what is gonna be very cool is the amount of self-seeding they allow through here is gonna make it feel increasingly natural. That, you know, not a whole lot of people will pay attention to, but people know that when they are sitting in there, it feels awesome. And why does it feel awesome? Because they're surrounded by plants. They just think there's something about the vibe. Yeah, that vibe is being surrounded by a bunch of beautiful, luxurious native plants that require thoughtful planting and care long term. All right, here's kind of a nice little highlight right here. This corner probably has a bunch of runoff, and so they've got rushes here that tend to love water. And if you don't know the silly little adage to remember your graminoids or things that look like grasses, there's a silly little phrase, which is sedges have edges, rushes are round. If I run this through my fingertips and like this, like you would a pencil or something, it's totally round. And grasses have joints straight down to the ground. You can see in here we got a grass and there's joints. So a nice little trick if you got an area that likes to stay wet. All right, so here's a neat plant. This is sweet fern. It has this very aromatic scent to it, hence its name. It's very strange. It smells like lavender almost. It's pretty bulletproof. You can see it's right here in what would be an otherwise very tough area to grow, but it makes its own nitrogen, so it's not too fussy about soil. You can see that gorgeous. It almost looks crazy in there, that hyper iridescent little blue stem. Bunch more sunflowers and Joe Pye weed, of course, and more of the ironweeds and more of that sweet fern interdispersed in this particular planting. More of that north wind painted grass over there. Big key takeaways from this sort of planting is that there's lots of the same plants repeated throughout that have a lot of long-term interest, right? I think is a lot of native plant gardeners want to just kind of go ham and have as much diversity. There's a nice gorgeous sycamore tree in the corner of this one area. They just want to have their own little botanical garden, which is perfectly fine. But if you want kind of easy, low maintenance, long-term interest, picking a bunch of really bulletproof plants, planting them in big groups is kind of a winning combination. All right, here's another mostly shaded area. A lot of gorgeous little river birches for the trees that they're kind of limiting to a shrub size. Got some goldenrod in here and something we haven't seen before, some Beatrice or blazing star. Not sure how well they do long term in here, but you know, you can always increasingly plant them. But their seed heads have gone and maybe they'll self-sow. They do really like to self-sow if it's nice and dry. Some more sunflower and more rushes and Joe Pye weed. Here we've got something that's planted all around Camp North End, and this is actually, oh look, we even got some leftover flowers from it. This is trumpet vine. This is a native vine, but it's super aggressive. You definitely want to be careful. I wouldn't plant this against your house. A brick column, sure, no problem. And also it's fully contained within the pavement here in this planting, and so it's fine right here. It's going to fully cover that column. It's going to be awesome when it does. But, you know, if you're going to plant a vine next to your house, you got a lot of better options. Like Virginia creeper is much safer and doesn't tear up the side of your house. And it's gorgeous in the fall. Oh, we missed these. So these are great little native ground cover. This looks like plantain leaf pussy toes or Antenaria. I'm guessing the genus is named after the fact that the little flowers look like little antennae. But as long as you're not traipsing around too much, they'll spread slowly. A lot of the native ground covers, they take a while to spread, y'all. Just gotta be patient. Remember, garden time is not human time. People are like, I need a fast growing ground cover this season. It's like, okay. And it needs to be deep, dry shade. It's like, okay, well, there isn't one. Although Virginia creeper would be your best bet in that scenario. All right, so next up is I have a hideous thing. How do I hide it? Here we've got another leaf viburnum, broadleaf evergreen shrub, super tough, very large, good for hiding stuff, obviously. Got a bunch of evergreens over here. People are always like, I need a native evergreen that grows 12 feet a year. And it's like, just calm down. Here we've got inkberry, kind of a go-to standard for evergreen shrubs. This looks like coastal dog hobble. leucotho, which is actually related to the one in the mountains, which is all spread throughout acidic cove forest. This is so named because the pot hounds that would pursue bear in early colonial America for hunting purposes would become hobbled when they would run through big patches of this stuff. And that's why the bear would run through them on purpose, try to slow down their pursuers. Looks like some other viburnum here in the corner. Once again, not a whole lot of traffic in this corner, just trying to hide the piping, electrical stuff. Looks like black haw viburnum back there struggling with some sort of mildew. I bet they'll replace that with something else, or maybe this ironweed will just spread itself out and sow right through there. So a lot of really neat combinations right here for a very specific purpose. All right, well, I think that's pretty much the main planting combinations that can be seen repetitively used throughout. Thanks for joining me on this absolute masterclass of a native planting. This middle section is so freaking cool. They've just left it wild. There's a couple signs that say that they're going to supplement planting. I'm sure they'll sow some more, native prairie plants here in the middle. But what's kind of so awesome, oh, there's some native guara. We actually haven't seen that combination yet. Guara with little blue stem and some more Baptisia. We didn't talk about it, but there's a really nice Baptisia minor cultivars. Baptisia minor, winterberry. That's a little less messy than kind of your regular false go-to or your regular go-to false indigos. But yeah, this place is an absolute, if you're near the Charlotte area, it's just an absolute prime example. Oh, look at that. Oh, that's actually, okay. This is yellow indigo. Bactesia spherocephala or something like that. And you can see it's got this spherical growth pattern. Gorgeous little yellow flowers in the springtime. So another Baptisia they're using here. But yeah, this place is just an absolute gem. It's kind of the first brilliant example that I've seen in an urban setting of an almost 100% native planting. There's a few things here and there that are non-native, but nothing really worth mentioning, and just tiny things to fill in the gaps. And still just gorgeous, right? Nobody's out here complaining about the messiness of this particular planting or what a disaster zone this is. In fact, everybody who comes here, I'm guessing, just feels like it's so jungly and luxurious. And that's all done through mostly native plants and native plant cultivars. So it's super cool. Wow, we just accidentally did a full loop. So that works out great. So yeah, maybe we'll follow up in the fall, see how the fall colors do. Maybe just do follow-ups on how the planting holds up throughout the different seasons. I thought the dog days of summer would kind of be ideal. And also there's some maturity behind the planting now. And so that's why we get to kind of really enjoy it. Oh, this whole wall was covered in Virginia creeper, y'all. Hold on. Yeah. There's more of the trumpet vine on this side. And then this whole wall is going to be perfectly purple here in the next couple months, covered with Virginia creeper. Just gorgeous. And of course, more of the roost, or more of that staghorn sumac. Perfectly fine and happy and still large and thriving in the shade there. Some silly little non-native cosmos, probably just so people will glance down this angry, aggressively wild area and be like, oh, it's okay, there's some flowers down there too.